Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Welcome to another match reaction. I told you guys it was going to be a little bit later just because I went to Cosm to watch the game. So hopefully I'm not too late. But yeah, make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I know that it's not under the best circumstances, but listen, we still have to crack on. Yeah, Arsenal 2, Villa 2. Um, Loads to talk about, I feel. That's why I put up the poll instead of doing a man of the match. I wanted to I sometimes when I watch or I look at the timeline after a game, I feel like I watched a completely different game than so many other people. I feel like now I have macro conversations after games as well, but I do feel like I talk about like just this instant max reaction and what happened in today's game. I feel like some of the narratives and agendas that people are talking about don't actually apply to today, um, like at all. So I put up the poll to kind of gauge what you guys think was or who you think is to blame for the result today because I'm seeing a plethora of things. Mikel, stop playing Partey at right back. Partey, why didn't you track your runner? Forwards missing chances. Odegaard not showing up. Um, Marino being blamed today. Kai being blamed today. TGMOL being blamed today. So I just wanted to get a little bit of a um kind of a thought process on what you guys think. Um, but, like it was interesting because um before the game, I was in a group chat and instantly people were like, I just think we're gonna lose today. There's just no way we can beat Villa, blah blah blah. And I'm just like, I don't know. I just feel like sometimes maybe like because people always say that I'm super negative, but um first of all, I've already said I'm not going to apologize to him, and if he's upset with me, he can shove that up his ass. Like nobody cares if somebody that I've never met in my whole entire life is upset with me. Like grow up. um he really needs to act his big age. It's 2025. Ain't nobody gonna apologize to you. You can wait until your last breath. You'll be in the dirt before you get anything from me. So I wouldn't even give you $1 if you were starving. So please. um but like I was saying, I think for somebody that's consistently called a negative person, I do find it strange that there's so many people in this fan base that because one person is missing or two people are missing, feel like there's no way that we'll get a result. I saw a lot of crashing out after the Liverpool result, which why are you crashing out over a result that was pretty obvious? Like we beat Brentford away from home. Why wouldn't you think Liverpool, a better side, would beat them at home? I think Arsenal fans, again, are way too invested in what's going on with other people, and we need to focus on ourselves and stop feeling sorry for ourselves always and just thinking, yeah, well, because basically it's just about excuses. Saliba's missing, so that means that we shouldn't be able to do anything at home against Aston Villa. Aston Villa are not an elite side. It is actually really disappointing that we weren't able to beat them because, again, you don't have to be very good to get anything against us anymore. I know there'll be people in the comment section saying, yeah, but Villa were good today. I don't think they were. I think we pretty much dominated that game and we should have won it. Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, I don't know. It's really disappointing because we should be getting something from these games. And I mean, you can't really afford to drop points at home against a Villa when you did drop so many points before. But I do think there's like this element of excuses and, oh, the injuries and all this kind of stuff. And I just feel like we should be feeling like, because from a performance standpoint, I don't actually think our performance was bad. I actually think we played pretty well. It's just in the boxes, we just lack so much sometimes. We're letting in the softest of goals at this stage where you don't even have to really do anything to score against us. You just have to hope that somebody switches off, because 9 times out of 10 somebody will switch off. Um, and then when we're in our box or in their box, the opposition's box, we will be in there all day long and not score enough goals. I just today we should have scored at least 3 or 4 goals. When we went into halftime 1-0 up, that definitely wasn't enough. 2-0 wasn't enough. And you miss some really decent chances while we're in the box. Like, yeah, it's when I watched that game, I felt very like, when the first half ended, that I was satisfied with the performance, because there's a lot of Arsenal fans that write off so many games just because we don't have certain people in the team. But fast forward to the 90 something minute when we draw the game, I do feel like we just lack so much when it comes to moments, whether that's from a defensive standpoint or an attacking standpoint. And I do feel like some people at their big age, should be responsible for marking people, clearing the ball out, not losing the ball in silly places. And Partey is not the only person that we've seen do this season. We've seen, even Timber switch off in in the cup competition at the back post. We are not switched on enough in either box. We're just not. And so that's how you drop points, and we dropped 2 points from a winning position. We're up 2 goals, whatever. But if you were to ask me, like, Jessica, what side do you really sit on? Do you think it's more defensive problems that we have or more attacking problems that we have? I may be in the minority here. And I just feel like there's rarely any games where we can look back on it and say, you know what? Our defense really wasn't good today. So and so switched off, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? We have the 3 points in hand. It's very rare that we sit after a game where our defense wasn't 100% and have all 3 points. If our defense doesn't keep a clean sheet, it's almost guaranteed that we'll drop points. And sometimes I feel like that mostly comes from not having the type of attack that will actually score the 3 or 4 goals and make it impossible really for Villa to come back. So maybe I'm sure I'm in the minority, because I think most people will say, like, if you're up 2-0, you really shouldn't be going to 2-2. But I just feel like sometimes, like, we never have the ability to scam a win. And what I mean by that is, be kind of shit and still win against decent sides. Against, like, bottom feeders, we kind of can do it, but against, like, middle of the road sides, it's very rare that we end up with all 3 points and we're like, yeah, but we conceded them goals, but maybe that's just me. But it's a nuanced conversation, which is why you have to bring these conversations off of Twitter, because you have people, well, you have them on YouTube as well, that just want to get their narratives off and just want to get their agendas off and are not able to have, like, normal conversations about a game. I'm sorry, but we should have scored more than the 2 goals, and we had opportunities to do so. I think it is a handball. The more that I watch it, I don't think we can just blame the referees today. And I think despite, Partey being really culpable for probably both goals, Arteta needs to get out of this idea that he can play him at right back, because we've dropped points every single time he's played there. And I don't think it's a coincidence. So yeah, there's a lot of different things there that manifested to, come to the 2-2. I don't think it's one person. I don't think it's just the manager. I don't think it's just the attack. I think it's so many different things. This was a very um disappointing result that to me doesn't necessarily reflect the performance, which is why it's so disappointing. When we drop points, I want us to, like, it's so much better when we played horrendous, but so many people had already thrown in the towel before we started. And I hope that at the very least they can uncloud their vision a little bit and stop talking about title races and being this great team if you don't expect us to get anything at home against Villa, even with injuries. Bournemouth have more injuries than we do and went to St. James's and bopped them right off the park. And we already know that we're going to go to St. James and there's not even going to be an ounce of confidence that we can win it, because we don't have expectations of what is a good side. We're always looking for an excuse. We're always looking for a reason that doesn't have anything to do with these players just didn't do enough, right? So, yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot there, but I think my feeling is mostly like I'm disappointed. I do feel like this team gets off gets the it's gets let off the hook a lot because if you just don't have a player like we don't have Saliba, that means that we should expect somebody like Timber to be able to step up. Timber is a fabulous player that is a right-sided center back by trade. We should expect him to be able to come in and have a good performance, which he did. We should expect Gabriel to be able to help Timber have a good performance, which he did. We should expect the likes of Marino to be able to come in and play in midfield and play well, which he did. We should expect players to be able to score goals at home against Villa, which we did. The fact that we don't have those expectations make me so angry because the same people that are giving those excuses are the same ones that will turn around and say, "Yeah, but we have 91 goals this season and oh, well, we went unbeaten almost the entire second half of the season and we look at this, we're the best team in 2024." Your guys' expectations of this team does not match the chat. Make it make sense. So there's a lot there. Let's see what you guys are saying. World Boss says, "Hey Jess, I'm drained from our club. I'm so disappointed. I'm not even angry. This club is breaking my heart." I think I do feel, and also I always feel differently when I go somewhere to watch a game. When I'm not at my house, I always feel differently. So I feel like I'm a lot less angry than anything, but I am disappointed just because it was in our grasp. But I don't really expect us to win the league because I always kind of expect us to drop more points than the other teams. Like once we got like 9 points behind Liverpool, I was like, okay, well, it's probably not going to be feasible. So I'm not really surprised. The idea that like if we have to be perfect from now, which now already started a couple of games ago, to the end of the season, we're not going to be able to do it. So yeah, that disappointment is definitely there. And it is draining, to constantly have these types of games. But that's kind of where we are. Saida says, if the manager rotated more often and we still played relatively well and won games, then I don't think fans would feel as nervous seeing one or two players out. Yeah, I hear that, but then why does then I always see people defending the manager. And I've always spoken about the lack of rotation as one of his biggest, you know, uh, faults. He's not somebody that rotates very well, but the idea that some of these players can't step up in these positions is just a fallacy. And his reluctance to do it, I don't think it has anything to do with their lack of quality. I think he just cannot fathom not using certain players. So, yeah, the performance today, regardless of the result, should show people that you should have higher expectations for this group, even with injuries. Stop giving them a way out. They should have won today, and they had everything in their pocket. Like that, there was not a single reason why they shouldn't have won that game. They should have won that game. It's not about not having Saliba, and it's not about not having Saka. That's not what today was about. I don't want to hear about that. Seeing on the timeline, stop. Today was not about not having Saka and not having Saliba. Today was because some of our players just don't have the minerals when it comes down to it. They make big mistakes in big moments and they're never held responsible. The manager keeps doubling down on certain things that don't work. And we have forwards that just can't capitalize on half chances or even full chances. So today is not really about, you know, it's not really about that. Vic says, anyone asking about Tomiyasu, evaluate yourself. He's a myth at this point. You are one of those fans who overrated your team, though. Not really. First of all, you probably don't watch my show. You're probably just tapping in because you're on Twitter and you're probably like a rival or something. But I feel like I'm more balanced than anything. I don't say our team is all shit, and I don't see our team as the best in Europe. So how can I overrate a team that I feel like I rate very, very clearly in where we are? That team was more than good enough to beat Villa at home. That's why it's disappointing. If we weren't good enough to beat Villa at home, then why is everybody acting like, oh, you bottled a 2-0 lead? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Of course this team is good enough to beat Villa at home. And if I thought this team was so good and I overrated it, then why was I upset in the summer window that we didn't improve it? Why have I been so harsh about the Havertz signing? Why have I been so harsh on keep buying left backs? So I haven't overrated the team. You don't watch my content. And so, just how about get a life? Like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Please come with actual evidence of what things that I've said. I don't overrate this team. I think I rate it a lot more balanced than most other people. It is not shit. Our team is not crap. These players are not incapable of beating Villa at home. They're not. But are there clear gaps and holes? Absolutely. Are we one of the best teams in Europe? No, probably not. Are we one of the best teams in the Premier League? Yes. MMB says Arteta misspent the money. The squad should be higher quality. Richard says he took Martinelli off. Um, I don't know why he took Martinelli off. Because Sterling coming on after that little thing that came out about him being in the dumps of confidence. Remember, we just talked about this the other day. Well, I talked about on multiple shows. We have way too many attackers that are head cases. Too many attackers that don't have the minerals. They don't have, the mentality. They really don't. We have a handful of players that I back to show because they're not always going to get it right. I expect everybody to make mistakes, but we have a handful of players where I'm like, yeah, but you'll make a mistake and you have a goldfish memory. It'll just go away. You know, we have a handful of players where no matter what's happening, no matter if we're away at home at Anfield or at home against Leicester, are going to put in top level performances. Players that aren't scared of their own shadow, players that aren't, afraid to make things happen. Most of those players are at the back. At the front, those players were actively working through their confidence issues today. And you could see it. Trossard, after the game against Spurs, clearly looks like a much different player, but before this, you could tell that he was really struggling with his confidence. Havertz still struggling with his confidence, despite the goal today. Martinelli, the bar is really low for him. Despite having, scoring the goal today, I'm still seeing people say, like, this is a great performance for Martinelli. I'm like, it's great for this version, the version with no confidence. We have too many attackers that need an arm around the shoulder. And Sterling coming on, who's much worse than Martinelli, and just having nothing to offer is just like, you guys know, I told you that as long as he doesn't kick it in the back of our own net, I'm pretty much like, fair enough, because he should not even be at the club. Let's be honest. If we did nothing in the summer, we would have a stronger team than now. I would take ESR, Nelson, Ramsdale, and Kedia Vieira over Calafiori, Sterling, and Marino. Recruitment is shocking. Boy says it's a nonsense that these players don't have confidence. They don't have confidence. I don't know how you can watch players just because they're being paid a lot. I know you mentioned that the other day. Well, how can Havertz not be confident? He's being paid this much and da da da. It's probably just the fact that he is being paid that amount and he's not the guy, and they are putting pressure on him and they are abusing his wife, that he has confidence issues. Havertz has historic confidence issues, so let's not pretend, you know? LG says Martinelli killed our counterattack by not looking up and losing the ball, which led to the Tielemans goal. This is true. G. Will says if Sterling going to play, he has to play on left wing so he can cut onto a strong foot playing from the right, because he cut onto his weak foot something you can clearly see that he don't want to do. I'm honest, I think a serious team cancels the loan. First of all, a serious team doesn't have him, but a serious team cancels the loan so that we could at least even maybe loan in a better Premier League player. I just persisting with Sterling, a Sterling that has no confidence at all, is just like the bottom of the barrel when Saka's injured. It's just like, it's ridiculous. Graham says every time we play Partey at right back, we drop points. He played in midfield against Brentford and Spuds, and we win. Surely there is an academy right back we can throw in. You guys would have a heart attack if we did that. Listen, there's a double-edged sword here, really, if you're willing to, be honest, is even if you love him to death and you think he's a great player, no way on earth should you make an excuse for him not tracking the one person that he probably should track. He is a 30-something-year-old experienced defensive midfielder, not an attacking midfielder, not a striker. He's not so far out of his comfort zone that he should not be able to understand marking. Not only that, There were actual clips going around over the last couple of days of him even playing in his best position, not being able to figure out who to mark while we're in the box. He's always dropped too far back into the back line. And so Partey's issues defensively are not just singular to him playing right back. It is, if you're willing to listen and willing to be open to it and not get defensive because he's your favorite player, you don't like Rice or whatever. When he's in the game, we're much less like sturdy defensively. There's more holes, there's more gaps, no matter where he's playing, whether it's DM or at right back. Today, we didn't have any problems building up. We didn't have any problems creating chances. There was no problem with that. We were in their half all the time. There was nothing. There was no problem. There was no, well, Declan Rice was playing in the six, so, oh my gosh, we couldn't do anything. He gets let off the hook more than anybody else that I see. For somebody that is so lauded by this fan base, you can say two things can be true at the same time. That because he's such a defensive liability, Arteta should make sure that he never plays him at right back. But him being a defensive liability is unacceptable at his big age. It's unacceptable. It just is. Like, he must track his runner. That's it. He must track his runner. That's it. And if Arteta cannot see that he's a defensive liability and then puts him even closer to our goal, then I don't know, Arteta needs to figure out something else. Now, some people are like, Kivior was right there. I do think we probably concede more goals like early on with Kivior in there. But, I don't know what Arteta could have done. I don't know what other combination he could have utilized. So it's tough. It's a tough one. But once you see something's not working or somebody just is not switched on enough to, if you can't even do it in midfield, then don't put him at right back, especially because our right backs, they're not even like just attacking right backs. They're very much so a part of that sturdy back line. And so you need to be switched on. I just don't, it's, the giving away the ball one, I see that one, but it's really the one where you just let literally the striker run right past you. Nico is saying, what about Tierney? I mean, you could use Tierney as well. So this should just be the last time that we see it. And the biggest concern to me is that Arteta did it unprovoked. He started off at the beginning of last season playing Partey at right back. This is not just something that he thinks of in an emergency. This is something that he's been actively trialing at the beginning of last season. Partey started playing right back when we didn't even need him to. Tomiyasu was fit and Timber was fit. And you had Ben White. Well, you had Gabriel as well, but you had him on the bench. But you had you had Saliba and Ben White playing center back. You had Tomiyasu available and you had Timber available. And the first game of the season against Nottingham Forest, he played Thomas Partey at right back. This is not something that he's just doing under duress. This is something that he clearly thinks we get something from, and we don't. So, yeah. All of that being said, I still feel like there's a margin for the attackers to score that additional goal. How many, there has to be like maybe one or two games this season max that we scored a goal at the, like a winner at the end. I'm really struggling to think of a game where we weren't the ones who conceded at the very end, but they were the ones who conceded at the very end to us. I can't really think of anything. And I just think we struggle to, today really wasn't that, but we have had problems creating those chances. But today, I think we should have been able to score that last goal. The Cosmic Moth says when Mikel has an idea, he refuses to admit when it doesn't come off. And that's what drives me crazy about today. Victor says, funny how we don't buy players that are on the upward trajectory, then expect them to have monster mentalities. Arteta hasn't bought a Ford on the up career-wise. Levon says Partey does some good things, but we will find a player that can replace him. Let his contract run out, please. And this isn't even talking about the brain dead moment that he had when he basically threw in an assist to Ollie Watkins. So he's just somebody that I think has too many brain dead moments in big games, like, or games where we just need to win, and they're costly, for a player that's so heavily, lauded. He has a lot of blood on his hands in these moments because it's just not the first time that we've seen him just have bad moments. So, yeah. Kwame says Partey unfortunately failed to stop Ollie Watkins for Villa to equalize. Yeah. Boy says the fan base defends Party so much, though, could swear that he was their uncle for real. Johnny says we did score the last goal. I saw no hand there. I think it was a handball. You know, the more that I look at it, if he doesn't, I do think it's a handball. So yeah, Rashad says you look like a termite. Do I look like a termite, guys? Do I look like a termite? Do I look like a termite? I'm pretty sure I look better than anybody you've ever touched in your life. And I'm pretty sure you probably haven't even touched anyone at all. You're probably a sexless virgin. So you wish. Burmy says the bigger issue is the poor squad building in successive seasons. Players need to rest in rotation. Yep, no rotation is a problem, and so squad building we know it's a problem. Yes, the injuries have hurt us, but not buying quality attackers in the past few windows is shocking, and I think we know that. I think the lack of clinical attackers is why most teams get one goal or one chance, one goal against us, and we're kind of spending a lot of time in their half, and we're not able to create those clear-cut opportunities. Or it's not even so much the clear-cut opportunities. I think we need them almost to be clear-cut, and even if they are, there's no guarantee that we'll score them. The half chances do not ever end up being goals. I think mostly because we don't have players that can take advantage of it, and so you just think about the chances that Villa got. They only really needed 2 chances to bury it because they actually have strikers, that can put they have players that have confidence in front of goal. If it's not really obvious clear goal, we're not gonna score it, you know? Um, OGN says, "Jess, if these clowns are gonna insult you, at least." I don't know. Like, one thing you're not gonna do is tell me I'm ugly, okay? Like, I'm sorry. One thing you're not gonna do is tell me that I'm ugly. Like, let's be real. Like, I'm not even trying to be cocky or anything like that, but I'm not ugly. So, and a termite of all things, first of all, I don't really know what a termite looks like because I don't have those in my home. So, I don't know what to tell you. A termite, come better, and one thing about me is I love an opportunity to clap back up people because I don't always have those opportunities. So sometimes it's like you guys give me what I need, and it just gives me the fuel that I need for the rest of the day. So thank you. LG says, for anybody who says there are no managers out there that can replace Arteta, which fans would have chosen Slot or Maresca or Areola? Nobody, because they didn't know who they are. I think I would say, like, my only caveat to, like, this thing, which you guys know I'm not a big, like, don't talk about replacing the manager. I do think that there's scope to even just broach the conversation of, like, is there anybody else that could just do 5% better? Because we're literally, like, 5% away from being, like, a top team. And Arteta does have culpability in stopping us from being able to reach that. So yeah, but I'm not really looking at managers that are not necessarily. Do I think that if Arteta was at Bournemouth that they would be in like a much worse position? No. Do I feel like Areola would be like infinitely better than Mikel? No. But you know I don't know. I think I think what I really would want is a manager that I've seen win something before. I think you're still in the unknown with the Areolas, Maresca types. I want to see somebody that's won something before. Um, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm looking at the like Inzaghi types or whatever, where I think that, if I wanted to pinch somebody, I want somebody that I know without a shadow of a doubt has got it over the line. Because that's the biggest concern I have with Mikel is not, can we play good football? What are y'all doing? Is not playing good football. It's not, that kind of stuff. It's mostly just like, can he get us over the line? Does that make sense? Hold on. There's something going on with these children. Hold on. What? Well, now why are you in there? Why did you go in there? Let's see. Okay, yeah. Um, let's see. Kwame says, Jess, Arteta is so stubborn. He doesn't want to accept that we need a striker. Um, Edit says, can we speak about ball? Victor says, we will not regret bashing Uncle Party. Get him out. That throw today shows the age is catching up. And it's not even a, you know what, it's not even about bashing him per se. It's more like just the football, like let's just keep it on football. We need to turn a leaf in midfield. What we've had hasn't worked. Even at the peak of Partey's powers, with a midfield that was performing out of their skin, we still didn't win the league and we were still, whatever. And so 2 years down the road where he's like a ghost of that player or a shell of that player, there's nothing that he's really done this season that makes me feel like we need to give him a contract extension. And that also applies to Jorginho. I think we need 2 top quality midfielders in the summer. We'd be lucky if we got one, but the wages are something that I do feel like if Partey was on 100,000 pounds a week, the conversation around him staying another 2 years or so is infinitely different. The wages attached to him means that he's a starter, and I don't necessarily feel like we're getting the bang for our buck here. I feel like those are like life-changing wages for an Arsenal side. Those Jesus wages, those Havertz wages, and those Partey wages are not working for us right now. If you replace those 3 with 3 players in those positions and you gave them those wages, we're winning so much. And so that's why I'm so bullish about moving him on. Doesn't mean he's had a terrible season. Doesn't mean that he's not a good player. It's just the wages plus the performances that we're getting, plus how it's going to inhibit us from, getting somebody, because you need to be able to give those wages to somebody. You're not going to be able to offer some of the players that you guys want 100,000 pounds a week. That's why, you know, it it kind of just makes sense for us to move him on. If we're just talking about football, you know? That's all. Victor says, "Yeah, Kwame, this is frustrating. We can't go another season trophyless. It's unacceptable for a team of our caliber. And we are a good team. Like we are a good team. That's what frustrates me more than anything is that I will never sit here and say that I feel like these players are shit because I don't think they are. And that's why I don't engage in conversations that are disingenuous. This is why it's frustrating. Not because this team is shit, but because this team is so close to greatness. We're it's like we feel far away, but equally it feels like we're close with a striker and another left winger or another midfielder with just 5% more. We're where Liverpool is. As bad as we've been this season, look at where we are. As bad as we've been, look at where we are. That's what pisses me off. We're the only team that looks like, besides like Nottingham Forest, if you're buying into the Leicester thing, that, they're actually like, oh, we're in the title race. Do you know how insane that is with the season that we've had? For us to be as close as we are with the injuries, with the red cards, with the nonsense, that's why it's frustrating. Not because we're shit, because we're not, so it's so irritating, especially if you've been around for long enough. You've seen multiple projects crumble off of the back of not just getting what we need. And even today, even though we dropped the points, we still need to get players in this window. And we have 13 days to get it done, and we don't look any closer to getting anything done. It's really like ticking time bomb right now. So yeah, it's a tough one. But yeah, I'm just saying, like, um, we're really close, but yeah. And Nico makes a good point that this team lacks mentality and yeah. Um it does. It does lack mentality. We don't have enough mentality players closer to the goal. I think that's our biggest concern right now. We have high mentality players from DM back. From DM back, I don't, even though we conceded the goals today, it was largely due to, unfortunately, one person pretty much falling asleep in a bad situation. But even at that, you can make the caveat that he's not a fullback. So, but the attackers just don't have it, So the fact that people were surprised that they even scored today just says it all. I can't believe Trossard actually got the ball to Martinelli. We shouldn't be surprised. We should not be surprised that these players are playing well. If we are surprised, then it ain't good enough. You know? Levon says, I wish we could bench Odegaard. He needs it so bad. I mean, I do see like the elements of people like feeling like Odegaard was a big problem today. Um, Even with the ghost game though, like if we don't concede those goals conceded weren't really his problem. We scored goals up front. Trossard missed a sitter at the end. Even with the ghost game, we should have won. So his season is concerning from the standpoint of like it's lasting for a long time. And this is our player of the season 2 seasons in a row. Whether you thought he deserved it or not, a big amount of Arsenal fans felt that way. And actually outside of Arsenal fans, a lot of people feel Odegaard is one of our top players. And that's why like his performances do need to lift quite a bit. We talked about the captaincy. I'm not that I'm not one of those that's like, stripping him is like would kill his soul kind of thing. I think if you don't make things a big deal and you're not always so careful around people's emotions, then you make it less of like this heavy, heavy thing. We need our captain to be the type of player that puts the game on their back. And I do think that there was a player that did put the game on their back today, and that was Declan Rice. Declan Rice was more creative, more influential in the final third, more ambitious, more, everything that in a position that doesn't necessarily suit him, in my opinion. I saw more Declan than I saw of Odegaard in that game, and that's been in the last couple of games. And so I think Declan should be and is our captain. That's who I think our captain is. Gabrielle is also a leader. Odegaard, you can do the quiet leadership thing. That's fine, but there are games where he really is like this was to me less disappointing than the games where he actually got on the ball and looked like shit. But he had a ghost game at home, and so I'm not quite sure what's going on with him. But I think because it's becoming less and less surprising, it's not really affecting me as much as it did in the very beginning where I was like, what the fuck is this? But I'm almost starting to expect the bad performances. So yeah, but we can't bench him. There's no one Yeri. And even if we did bench him, I'm not sure how we would do because what in the Premier League since he's, been back, we haven't lost a game. So despite, you know, his poor performances, we're still doing all right. But I'm not quite sure how much longer this can go on without him pulling the finger out. I'm not quite sure why today he went backwards from the game before. They need a sitter or what? I'll come babysit the baby if that means that, you guys will get rest and Odegaard will stop playing like shit. I don't know. You need a sitter. What do you need? I don't get it. But yeah, it's maybe he just ran out of gas. I don't know. OBG, sorry, OB, I won't say OBG by YN. OGN says, Jess, you're beautiful. Thank you so much. Don't read insults out loud, especially free ones. Make those fools pay to be a clown. Fair enough. Listen, sometimes I just need a little moment to not be nice. you know? So yeah. LG says the longer Arteta delays this so-called project, the more likely players like Saliba, Saka, Gabriel will leave. We've been there before RVP, Nasri, and Adebayor. Yeah, it's just so obvious that we just need to do what's necessary and buy the types of players that make the difference in games where you're not perfect. I just don't feel like we should. The margins are so fine for us, but the margins aren't fine for anyone. Really, elite teams, really top level teams can afford not to play particularly well and scam wins just because they have players that make those differences. I just think we have to play our perfect football, create enough chances, be almost clean sheet at the back to get that 2-1 win because we're always still going to concede. You know what I mean? So we need more. We just need more. And I think it needs to be at that top end of the pitch. The longer this goes on, the more I'm like, anybody but Saka can go. and I don't like feeling like that because I don't think these players are horrendous. Trossard got 2 assists today. Martinelli, I think, played well for what we're expecting for him right now. Havertz scored a goal, but I'm just like, bin it all, start over, and get 4 new attackers in. I don't know, you know? Um, it's crazy. Nico says Saliba is not signing that contract in the summer. Edit says we made 1 sub, by the way, in phase 5. We couldn't even brought anyone else. We couldn't even brought anyone else, you know? We couldn't. We couldn't have brought anybody else on. Our team is so thin, and anybody that comes on is like a defender. The balance in this team has been off for a very long time. The balance in the team has been off for a very long time. There's too many DMs and too many defenders and not enough attackers. Especially when you get rid of the likes of like it's even if you don't like them, the Vieiras, the ESRs, don't replace them. Replace them with Marino. We're really light up front. So it was only going to take an injury or so to put us in the dirt. We're actually just talking about, Saka and Ethan. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about a mass injury group. We're talking about a 17-year-old and Saka. And we can't bring any attackers off the bench, really. But we have a shit ton of left backs that we could bring on. This is why I'm like, we don't need all these DMs. We could genuinely do with just 1 or 2. Like, we don't need more. Nicholas says, people still blaming Havertz. He scored, plus that wasn't a handball. I think Havertz, is just always going to get the negative, stuff. You know what I mean? Um, I'm not quite sure that I think he played particularly well, but I do think that he took his goal well, if that makes sense. And you know what? If you have a striker that you bought and his overall game isn't very good, but he scores a goal that should be, the end of the game, then I guess that's good enough, So, um, but yeah, Havertz is never. I just don't think. I honestly, unless he becomes a completely different person, which he won't. He's 25 years old. This is who he is. He's not going to change into somebody else. He's never going to be universally loved by this fan base. He's just not. There's always going to be somebody creeping in somebody creeping in the behind, like, he's shit, waiting for him to make a mistake. So yeah. Victor says, why do you guys want her to glaze Partey so much? Oh yeah. You guys, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. I'm If you watch today's game and the first thing that you want to do is come into this comment section and defend Partey, do that on your own volition. You're more than welcome to do that. But he was culpable for them goals today, so and you know what? Arteta should not continue to play him there. And I do agree with that. I think continuing to play him there is really just shooting us in the foot, So, but yeah, have fun. Have fun. Arsenal, West Palm Beach says Havertz did not handball that goal. Bad call. Feels like it looked like a handball to me when I watched it from multiple angles. I've seen multiple angles. I've seen the one that most people think that he didn't handball it, and then I've also seen the angle where it kind of looks pretty clear that he does. So unfortunately, it is what it is. So Chemist says at this point recalling Fabio Vieira just to boost our bench doesn't seem like a bad idea. Only reason why to me, Chemist, it would be kind of like a bad idea at this stage would be because Arteta doesn't know how to use him. And that's very clear. He had him for 3 years and couldn't figure out how to get a tune out of him. And so ripping him away from a loan where he's playing relatively decent and we could probably use him there, let him stay there and get a fee for him to get him off of the books. I do not want to see a player just rot on the bench for no reason. I think hopefully Ethan comes back and Arteta seems to be able to get a better tune out of Ethan than Fabio. He can't figure out a way to allow the 10 just to be the 10. And that's the problem, So I would actually, just buy the players that you need to buy and take the finger out. Is taking people off of loans and shit like that is just like it just reeks of lack of ambition for a team that has met multiple windows without bringing players in these positions. Pull the finger out. Just buy the players that you need to buy. There are players moving in this window. I don't want to hear it's a difficult window. It should not be. And if you don't have the money and you're skint, fucking say that. Don't say we don't have any problems with PSR and then turn around and be like, yeah, but we don't want to play the league. Just pay. I don't know what to tell you. Johnny says, I agree, Jess. Just like Havertz, last nail in the midfield coffin got hammered. So did the last nail in the Partey fullback coffin been hammered today strongly. Blaze says people don't like Havertz because he missed chances in our important games against Newcastle United. Also, he didn't improve us. I don't even know why the Havertz conversation is like, if you don't understand why people don't like Havertz, it's whether you think it's right or not is a completely different conversation to like, we should all be very clear on why this guy is never going to be liked at this club. Taking Chelsea cast-offs for expensive fee, not getting the other players that you need because you have this player in your team, and having him be not quite the answer in any position is never going to make you a favorite. It's hard to be a favorite at Arsenal, by the way. If your name ain't Saka, and your name ain't like, first of all, people just started liking Gabriel. If your name isn't Saliba or Saka, you're going to have a hard time becoming a favorite around here. So, but yeah, it's a tough one. It really is. Like, it's a tough one to take because it's really disappointing that we had in our grasp. I still don't think you have to be particularly good to beat us now or get anything. I just think we have to wait for us to make a mistake or switch off at the back. You always know you'll be within range because we won't score 3 or 4 goals. We'll just score the one and you'll be able to get one chance and score. It's really disappointing. Like, I'm not trying to minimize it at all. I don't think the performance was as bad as people are making it out to seem, but it's just there's so many different things you can point to for why we didn't win that game. And I don't want it to become it's just this one person, it's just this one thing, because I think that's disingenuous. I really do. I think it at this stage, Arteta should have found another solution for right back when we don't have one readily available. Obviously, Partey should be tracking the man, and him not being a right back is not a good enough reason for a defensive midfielder not to be switched on in that moment. Like, when you're going through a title, and this is my biggest concern about Arsenal when it comes down to the reason why we're not a good cup team and why we don't win anything. I don't necessarily always feel like it's just because we don't have good enough players. I think the mentality is really, really lacking in those moments. We can think of key moments in title races, between Liverpool and City and other teams like throughout the years where there's that one moment where somebody does something special, blocks something, does something, somebody plays out of position and has a monster game. I've seen Gravenberch play center back, for Liverpool this season and play out of his skin. And I just feel like the fact that it's always inevitable that somebody will have a Kivior type game or lose a marker like Partey does, or whatever, or we miss an obvious chance and then they come straight back down and score. It's to me, it's all wrapped up in mentality. I think we have a talent issue and a mentality issue, and those two things are wrapping up together really nicely to keep us from doing shit. Victor says multiple things can be true at once. People just want to fill their agendas and put blame on a single thing. Owners, players, fans question, Arteta, etc. It's easy for people to pick a target. It's low-hanging fruit, and I think that's why Twitter is good for that. That's, Twitter is not somewhere where I'm going to be begging for intelligent conversations or nuanced conversations, because people just need to get their agendas off, because when you have agendas and when you have, it's a place where you want to get clicks. But this game is not just on one thing. Our season is not just on one thing either. It's a coaching problem. It's a talent issue. It's players not stepping up. It's a mentality issue. There's so many different things that are manifesting to create the season that we have now, but I would like us to fix at least one thing, fix the talent issue up front. Start there, start there. Kwame says, Richard, to be honest, I don't know at all. You guys are talking to each other. Sorry. Let's see. The McChronicle says, if a manager can't improve the mentality after being in the job for 5 years, sorry, but I don't see the rest of this, but I can guess what you're getting at. Isaac says, watching Odegaard, Sterling, Partey try to make any chances on the right half space was painful. Victor says, proud to say I've been a big Gabby fan for a while now. Johnny says, Havertz has been decent. 1 game in months. That's the weird part. First game in months. That's the weird part. Against Newcastle and United, 0 out of 10. Against Spurs, 2 out of 10. Today, 5 out of 10 for me. Nice finish progress. It's just, Johnny, the way that you've broken that down at this stage, look at our defenders and then look at our attackers. How many times do you have to look at Gabriel and say, yeah, but he put in a 0 out of 10 here, a 0 out of 10, and now a 2, so we got progress, How many times do you have to say that about those types of players? We have to say that about, we had one stinky, bad point in time with Raya, and he has never went back since then. Saliba, we don't have to say that about him. We don't say that about Timber. Timber played it. He didn't play out of position today, but he stepped in a position for a gargantuan Saliba, and I thought he did a good job. Miles Lewis Skelly, we don't say that about the 18-year-old. Oh, he put out a 0 out of 10, a 0 out of 10, and then a 2 out of 10. We don't say that. We don't say that. We may say that, Rice, is not the best in that position, but it's rare that we say, we don't say 0 out of 10, 0 out of 10. But you can genuinely say that for Havertz, and you can say that there's too many runs of games where Odegaard is not good enough, where Martinelli is not good enough, where Trossard is not good enough, and where Havertz is not good enough. I'm just tired of talking about, yeah, but he was decent. Decent ain't enough, so it feels like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. But just to reiterate, despite those players I'm thinking are, they're not necessarily good enough for exactly what we want to do, in the micro conversation of today, what we had available to us was more than good enough to beat Villa at home. And we should have the expectation and stop letting that off the hook, by the way, because the expectation of Arsenal is that Arsenal should be able to beat Villa at home. Always having excuses for why this team can't perform is, I feel like, a big reason why we are where we are. It should not just be at the end of the season. I know when we don't win anything, the thing from the club won't be that we fucked up the summer window and Arteta made mistakes in coaching or anything. It's going to be injuries. Injuries are not a good enough excuse for me to put in poor performances, one, which wasn't poor performance really today, but to be not Arsenal at home. Unless we're playing Liverpool at Anfield, I expect us to look like a good side. And today we did, but those moments in the boxes, that's where the coaching / talent comes in, and that's why it's such a nuanced conversation, because I see it's like, we were just so shit. We really weren't, we really weren't. We just had that thing, that mental breakdown. Jordan says any serious club would bin Havertz in the summer along with Marino. Boy says we can't get Joselu would highlight Odegaard's real level. Super Fudium Arteta says, genuinely, how is there 750 people listening to this nonsense? Well, you're listening to it. So if you go, then there'll be 749 people. So goodbye. You can go. Oh my God, Partey didn't track. The world will end today, but we can keep defending the fake captain. But I mean, listen, if whataboutism is your way of trying to deflect from you're a player that you really like having a poor game or poor moments, then that's your way. Whataboutism doesn't stop the fact that he threw the ball in for basically an assist for Ollie Watkins, and we're lucky to get away with that. And he didn't track, and that's literally the goal that ended up being the equalizer. If he doesn't do that, even if Odegaard played like shit, we probably would have won, So it's just the lack of honesty in this fan base it's not really this fan base either. It's every single football fan base is like this, where, you can't just say that my player fucked up. It's just not, it should not be that hard, you know? Victor says self-awareness is rare these days. This brother is insulting people for listening while also listening is genuinely insane. People have no self-awareness. Boy says Odegaard can't be to blame today. I think he's lower down on the list. I think when we were looking for a goal, there were a lot of people saying, why isn't he stepping up? Why is he stepping up? Why is he stepping up? So I can't say 100% that he's, because he didn't do anything egregious in terms of like Trossard missing the sitter or missing a shot or, missing the pen, like if we had had a pen or anything like that, but also not having any actions and not being the player pushing us forward and having Rice be that person is not good enough, so you can't just get away, it's like you don't just get you're lower down, obviously, the totem pole of things that went wrong today, but you're definitely still on the list. You can't have a ghost game at home against Villa. I'm sorry. I I'm sorry. Like, you just cannot, so I think you have to put him on the list, but there were bigger culprits today for sure. Burmy says Havertz and Marino are backup players, but they have to be starters due to a thin squad. Havertz is not a backup player. That's where I disagree on with you. Havertz is 100% a starter in Arteta's eyes. He is. Arteta will fit him midfield, fit him up top. He's not a bench player. And his wages mean that he absolutely cannot be, because we need those wages working for us. So Marino is a backup player that does start due to the thin squad. But I think that in most scenarios for Mikel this season, with everybody fit, Havertz starts for him. And he starts for a lot of this fan base as well. Jordan says Odegaard is a quality player, but he is not captain material. Johnny says Gravenberch was shit last season. Now he looks brilliant. You can't bin Marino after just one season. Everyone deserves at least two, bar Marquinhos, obviously. Yeah. I don't even think that Marino was bad today. I think that obviously he also did not track, and letting Tielemans get in front of you is diabolical, so it's tough because there is obviously the moments and then there's the performance. Sometimes the moments and the performance are not good. You know what I mean? Like against Spurs, I didn't think Thomas Partey was terrible, like, at all. I thought he had a pretty good game outside of the moment of him not tracking Sarr that led to their goal, the opening goal, right? So there's moments and performances. I I think Marino actually performed pretty well today, but the moment when we just need you to do one thing, you didn't come up with it. And it was so damaging because we shouldn't even be letting them back in the game. It's so damaging that it almost erases what little credit in the bank you have. Because Marino is in negative. He's overdraft for a lot of people. He was overdrafted the minute that he came to the club because nobody wanted him here. So I can see why a lot of people have come around to Marino as the culprit, blah, blah, blah. He's the worst. But he does need to track the runner too. Like, he can't just let Tielemans get in front of him. Tielemans is a Teletubby. How are you letting him get in front of you for a diving header? How are you doing that? We just need you to do one thing. I need you to have one game, minute 1 to minute 90, where you don't give up a pen, where you don't have a own goal, where you don't have some bullshit, he didn't do it. So he's also needs to hold a little bit of corn, Burmy says, I keep hoping that Odegaard's performances will improve. This is becoming worrying. He wasn't terrible today, but he was nowhere near his best. For real. Victor says, Marino, good first half, poor second half. IK says, I wouldn't let Havertz play for under 10 team. He wasn't good enough for them. Yeah, Marino's 28 and has been in this league before. Don't compare him to Gravenberch. Jordan says the title is not over, but something has to be done this window. Attackers need to be signed. I just don't think we'll ever have the ability to really squeeze Liverpool, because we're always going to continue to drop points in games that we shouldn't. You look at every game pretty much that we drop points. Can you actually look at somebody that played us off the park? I can't really think of anybody that genuinely played us off the park to the point where it was like, fair enough, I can't really. We drop points in really silly ass fucking games where we did dumbass shit and just gave up soft ass fucking goals. And so, yeah, it's just, it's the title race isn't over, but with what we have right now, there's just no way that we'll be able to squeeze them. Um, we need attackers. Like somebody was telling me I was having this conversation on Mo's channel the other day too, that they pressed me about the complete team conversation because I was like, I just want us to complete one project, complete one and then see how we are because the disappointment is that I want to see the best version of us go up against the best version of Liverpool or whatever version of Liverpool this is. And they pointed out the fact that Liverpool don't have a complete team. And my response to that is I get that there's no such thing as a complete team because it's ever evolving, but if we were the team that you guys are trying to paint us into, like you guys should just be able to win the title with what you have, then why does everybody keep telling us that we need to Ben Havertz and get a striker? I'm talking about obvious flaws. Nobody looks at Liverpool and says that they have obvious flaws. They said that they could improve by having a DM or, improving with not having Nunez coming off the bench, having somebody else. But the one thing in a title race that you have to have is clinical forwards. You cannot win a title without it. There's not a single team in the history of the Premier League that has won the league without clinical forwards. The variation of how you get the goals and how many goals you score and what kind of team you are. If you're the type of team like City that creates an abundance of chances or your Mourinho team that creates one and puts in the back of the net, every single team that wins the league has clinical forwards. They just do. They have players that put in the back of the net in stressful situations. We don't have that. And so I feel like I just want to see this team with the clinical forwards. Without it, you cannot tell me that I'm just trying to figure out a way for it to be okay for us we should just be able to, without clinical forwards, we will never win a league title. I can say that with chest. We won't win anything without clinical forwards. You can't. Unless we're going to recreate the wheel and be the first team in the history of the Premier League. I don't remember a single team without clinical forwards, at least 2, 3. We have like one maybe in Saka. Come on. I just don't it's like, oh, well, nobody's complete. No one's complete, but if we had the team that was capable of winning the league, would nobody be sitting there on podcast after podcast after, show after show, after tweet after tweet, after Instagram post after Instagram post saying Arsenal need a striker. We just need it. I just want to see it just once, just once. If we lose to Liverpool then or whoever else, fair. Fair enough. If we had, let's say, in the summer, we got Sesko and Nico Williams or whatever 2 attackers, and we didn't win. Fair enough. We didn't beat the best team, but I think that's the disappointment is that we know we're not even really going bar for bar. We're not really doing it. We're so at a disadvantage. Saida says, I don't even think Saka is a clinical forward. He's a lot better than our other attackers. Exactly. I agree. Isaac says we can defo win the hardest league in the world with Sterling. Jordan says it's about mentality. To concede those 2 goals was criminal. Yeah. And because we don't have the forwards and the talent in the attacking areas, we can't afford to have those types of breakdowns at the back. We literally have to keep clean sheets. That's the only way. The only way that we could potentially do it is if we are basically perfect at the back. Because we don't have the other players that can just, with 30 minutes left, because I think we gave up the lead with about 30 minutes left in the game. You just knew we weren't going to score that next goal because the pressure was on. The pressure was on. The temperature had went up. When the temperature isn't up, we're a good team. At 0-0, we're a decent team. 1-0, we're a decent team. 2-0, a decent team. 2-2, pressure on. 30 minutes, Liverpool have already won. Those guys are crumbling like a Ritz cracker. Like, I've never seen it. Jordan says, "What was the vibe in the stadium during the game?" I think that they can't even blame the fans. The fans did their job. It was loud, in there. Samuel says, "Agreed about Saka, much better as a clinical creator, if you will, but still better than the rest." Which again goes back to my biggest complaint about Mikel is that instead of allowing people to just be what they are, he tries to coach them into something different. Saka should be he can be our star boy, but we should have been got other attackers that were the clinical finishers. Instead of buying clinical finishers, Arteta's trying to make Saka into our best finisher. He's trying to make Odegaard into our best finisher. He's trying to make Havertz into a good finisher. Stop trying to make players that have natural, like other natural gifts or other natural strengths. Make those better and bring in players that actually do those things because Saka doesn't have that either. We're forcing it. We're forcing it. Osimhen, Bayern Bomo. So yeah, it's tough. Like it really is. Today was very, very unserious. Yeah, Emi Martinez actually fucked it, and helped us, we really don't have anybody to blame but ourselves. I know some people are really hyper focused on the um the handball, but there's just too many games where we're looking at squinting at, replays of things and trying to find moments where we needed the penalty, where we needed this, where we needed that. The reality is that we need too many things to go our way. There's no wiggle room for mistake because we just don't have enough going for us on the pitch, really. So yeah. And the poll is saying 58% of you guys are saying Mikel is to blame for playing Partey at right back, and Partey for not tracking Watkins is 26%, which, you know, makes a lot of sense to me. Makes a whole lot of sense to me. Um, Here to there says you can't win the league with a starting striker who wouldn't start for 15 out of the 20 teams. Even Liam Delap offers more. Jordan says, "Do you think Partey should have done better on that goal he allowed?" Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's anyone else, people are more critical, but because he's someone that people really like, they're not harsh, if anything, if he's somebody that you rate really highly, then you should expect an experienced player, captain of Ghana, all these types of things, player that you want to give a new contract, you should best midfielder this season. You should expect somebody of his caliber to just track the runner. That's it. So, um, Kilme says we can't score goals. That makes the pressure on the defense huge, and they're not as secure as they were last season. I don't know how much more they could do. They're so good. Even going into this, we may not be it now because we just conceded 2 goals, but going into this weekend, we were still the best defensive team in the league, conceding the goals that we did. So this season so far, so it's just about the attackers. Like I think that's the macro of today is we still don't have the types of attackers that can, when we have a Partey blip at the back, make sure that, we get a goal right back. Because Villa, they're a good side, but I don't really think that it was so much about what they did today. I think so much of today was about what Arsenal didn't do. We didn't track runners and we didn't have enough going up front. Shouldn't even went into the first half just 1-0 up. We should have had at least 2 goals. Miles Lewis Skelly put the perfect ball across the 6 in that first half, and there was nobody fucking there. And I could have crashed out in that Cosm during that moment because my whole thing is all these box crasher and off the ball guys. I have people writing fucking dissertations about how great our off the ball players are in Marino and Kai, but no one's there for the Miles Lewis scale. I mean, that any striker on the planet. You could get a striker from the relegation zone. You can get Vardy would put that in the back of the net. You guys said Delap would have put that in the back of the net. Mateta would have put that in the back of the net. Wasn't nobody fucking there. So, Yeah, it's not enough. Elvis says, "My advice is don't support Arsenal with your emotions. It will always end in tears." Um, so yeah, it's just wild. Burmy says, "Buy someone. We need options. The only attacker to come back imminently is when Yeri Saka may not even be back up this season, and he shouldn't be because we shouldn't ruin his career by trying to rush him back because we don't do what we need to do. It's desperate. We need to go out there and get someone. If that window closes and we don't get anybody and they start doing up we tried, I'll come back for y'all, but if I didn't have this channel, I wouldn't even do anything else. Cuz why should I waste my fucking time when you don't have any respect for me? You don't have any respect for me and my mental well-being and our mental well-being if you don't get a fucking attacker. I'm hearing loans. I don't want no damn loan. Go out there and get someone that we should have got this past summer and overpay and overspend. Yeah, that's what I want to see. Pull the finger out. Get your wallet, that big fat ass wallet you got, Cronky, and swipe the card. Go on. I dare you. I dare you. I dare you. Victor says, I saw Duran coming on and I just thought, when was the last time Arsenal subs made our opponents feel fear? Nobody fears our attackers. No one. Bingham says, why would they waste the money now to get somebody when Liverpool will make it 10 points against Everton? I mean, you're doing their job for them, Bingham. We should still expect somebody to come in because you know why? Because on the off chance that Liverpool do, because remember, before this little blip, it was over. And then all of a sudden we were back in the title race because they dropped points. So I don't want to get to where the shit is closed. First of all, there's life after this window. There's life after this window. So the player that we bring in, if we bring in the right type of player, should be somebody that we want anyway. So it's not a waste of money to bring in somebody that we should have already had anyway. But on the off chance that, Liverpool drop more points, we should be in a position to take advantage of it. You're doing their job for them. Because that's probably exactly what they're thinking is, well, why waste points? Or we should have the expectation that they go out there and spend the money. Because guess who spent 200 million in this window and they're further behind than we are? Man City. Man City's players are already sitting there talking about it's over for them in the league. But we have Arsenal fans saying, well, why would they spend the money? Hello? Like, stop doing their job for them. Stop giving them excuses. If Man City go out there and buy 3 or 4 players in a window, what's our excuse? What's our excuse? They've been worse than we have been. Like, it makes no sense. Stop, Seda says, even if the new players weren't enough to win the title, it would still prepare us better for next season. They would have betted into a new system. Exactly. I don't see the negative thing about buying, why would you buy anybody that's over already? I don't get it. Kwame says Cronky should get off their backside and give Arteta the checkbook. And I will say, as a fan base, we tend to do the Cronkies work for them. We are a very forgiving and our expectations are very low. If they give us Sterling, I had people telling me that I was embarrassing because I crashed out over it, only for them to be so disappointed in a signing that was always going to fail. I don't believe in just being negative for negative sake and negative for clicks. But I do think that our standards are quite low as a fan base. Very low. We ignore very obvious things that are going wrong. We always try to find a spin on how we're much better than what we are. Every window that passes by, that's a total failure. Instead of just being honest about it, we get mad at people for saying it. We blame fan channels for being the biggest problem when really the biggest problem is that the people running the club are not getting us into positions to win trophies. We have such a weak mentality as a fan base. And that doesn't mean that you need to be ridiculous. I'm not saying that it's okay to just be fucking ridiculous. but I am saying that we do their work for them because they know we're easily pleased. When it's sunny out on May 25th, we're playing that last game of the season, we haven't won anything, those fans will be standing there in their kits, smiling at Arteta when he says, "Hope for more, wish for more." I was there when he did that against Wolves, and guess what? We've gotten worse every season since then. So, yeah, I just like Boy says the bar is not high. The bar is not high. Why would you ever say it makes no sense for us to buy good players for this squad? Huh? The only reason why I wouldn't want us to buy players now, and my only caveat would be is I don't like buying players when we don't have a sporting director. But I already know the sporting director that we're going to get is weak and is going to be Arteta's pick anyway. So just go ahead and do it. Just do it. Gargamel says that makes me even more sure that Edu was sacked. I wouldn't be surprised. LG says I've bought data just for the stream. I don't regret it. Roll me one Kenobi. Great name. Says go all out and test Newcastle for Isak. Then go in the summer. Foxy says football result can really ruin a weekend. Foxy, I really try not to let these things ruin my weekend anymore because, well, one, I'm sorry, but my dogs make me so happy. Ever since I got them, like, I can instantly just look at their faces after a game and I'm just like, okay, I get my feelings out on these streams and I'm like, it is what it is. I think my last like real emotional like, "Oh my gosh, Arsenal, you ruined my life," was like at the back end of last season, but this season has just been more of like a frustration and a disappointment around just an inevitability past that window. Past that summer window, I just couldn't look past it. So um, that first that actually that the top 4 race took a lot out of me a couple years ago because I was like, I cannot believe we didn't make top 4. And then the title race right after that, it changed me as a woman. It changed me as a woman. Um, yeah, changed me as a woman. Yeah. Kwame says, forget about Isak and go for Osman. Johnny says, yeah, Jess, go get that elusive boyfriend that'll make you forget about Arsenal. Fair enough. Blaze says standards are low because our fans defend Arteta so much, but when we question him and have constructive criticism about him, they become sensitive. Somebody that hasn't won a trophy in 5 seasons cannot be infallible and cannot be somebody that we're clutching our pearls over anytime you guys mention that. It's not that big of a deal. He's not a savior. He's not someone that, he changed our lives from 8th to Champions League, but now that we wanna go to the next station, we're stagnated, so there's nothing really wrong with questioning him at all, and that doesn't mean that you hate him, you know, but you also don't need to be, like, loving on him as well as if he's some god, because he's not even half as good as Arsene. LG says, never stress about something you don't have control over. At the end of the day, I was not the one who was playing and picking the team. So I'm going to enjoy my weekend. And on that, let's go ahead and start our player ratings. Um, it's so weird when I watch the games somewhere else. It's like it feels like I watched a completely different game than other people. So I don't know. My shit might be off, but what'd you guys think of Raya? Because I don't know if he could have done better on either one. Um, but he also made a really good save that kept it from being 1-0, I think, pretty early. So there's that. I remember that. I was like, that could have been 1-0, right there. I forget who took the shot, but it was close. Could have went in. But I don't know if you guys think he could have done potentially better on either one of those. You guys will let me know. But I feel comfortable giving him like a 6, but you guys will let me know whether you agree or not. I'm just like, yeah, whatevs. Now, listen, playing out of position, shouldn't be playing there anymore. Let's have it right. But, you know, there's not a single player on this planet that you wouldn't look at and say you should have tracked that runner. So, you know. Um, I don't think his overall game was like horrendous, but it was the throw in, the giveaway before, you know, the not tracking the runner. It's a lot, So I'm gonna give him a 5. I think even giving him the grace of not being at right back. Why are you throwing it into Ollie Watkins, man? Like, why are you doing that for? Timber I actually thought had a good game. Um, like Watkins didn't have a lot of joy outside of ghosting into the box and us not tracking him at all. Beyond that, is he wasn't peppering us or really anything. And I think a lot of that had to do with Timber having a pretty decent game. Obviously, you'd still want Saliba back there, but I don't think he had like a terrible game or anything like that. I actually thought he was pretty good. I think he stood upright. Again, we were in their half and in their box for about 89% of that game, 90% of that game. The 10% that they were in our half, they didn't have a lot of joy unless we just completely shit the bed. The 2 goals that they scored, they weren't really peppering us or really testing us that much. Like, it was an odd game. So, I'm gonna give him a 7. I think he stood up well and did a good job. I think Gabrielle is showing an elite level, to be honest. I don't really see anything that he particularly did wrong. I think, it's such an unfortunate thing where I think players are playing well, but their team doesn't live up to their standard. There's definitely a different standard that certain players are presenting that other players are not. They're not matching it. And Gabrielle's definitely one of our higher performers. He's probably our player of the season. He's been the most consistent from the beginning of the season. He's playing like a player that wants to win the league. Um, the other guys, I can't vouch for you. So I don't think Gabrielle is at any fault. I'm gonna give him a 7 as well. Can't really be giving too high scores because obviously like we drew the game or whatever, but like, make no mistake about it, Gabrielle was good today, and really, we didn't give up a lot, but when you give up 2 free kicks or whatever the fuck we did, and they just score those simple goals from crosses, it's just so fucking frustrating. Um, and he was brilliant again today. Showed levels. Should have had a pre-assist. The ball that he slips in, I mean, he slipped in, like, at least 2 passes, like, he had the one that should have been an assist, and then he had the one that went to Trossard. He should be putting them back in the net. I know people are saying he was offside, but I at least wanna see the lines put up there, because we're just guessing. So, as far as I'm concerned, he's our starting left back. Um, Calafiori, you just kinda need to hold bench for a little bit, because the only thing that I enjoy right now is watching this boy play. He is so good. He is so on the level. This is not a player that we need to pretend like needs sheltering or anything like that. He's so good. So, um, once we get beyond this, our team is so much less talented. But at the back, those guys are good. They really are. And they're playing at a level that's not being reciprocated by the people further forward. And that has to be so fucking disappointing, you know? So fucking disappointing because Miles Lewis Skelly wasn't really involved for those goals. Gabrielle wasn't, Timber wasn't. It's just like almost like individual mistakes. Marino not tracking Teletubby and fucking Partey not getting the one guy that you needed to get. So let me give Miles Lewis Skelly a 7 as well. He's so good. Let's see who else. Theo says we spent millions on 50 different left backs when MLS was right there. Ted's talent ID is dodgy. Kimberly says MLS unsung hero 7.5. Kwame says 7. LG says we have the best defense in the world playing with championship attack. It doesn't make sense. It does when you look at what we spent and what we spent it on. World Boss says MLS is a breath of fresh air 8. Victor says MLS feels so bad for him. 7. Blaze says we need to play Gabriel as a striker. Players fear him more than Havertz. And that says a lot. Kill Me says Villa did nothing. We gave them a point. And this is like why it's so hard because I want a team to beat us badly. Like I want to play against a team and say, "Oh my gosh, they played us off the park." Next time we drop points, I want to say that. I don't want the Newcastle game. One chance, one goal. And then we're 4 play in the box. I don't want the Manchester United game. Missing penalties, missing wide open goals out on penalties. I don't want that. I just want to I think the last team that I actually felt played kind of good against us was Brighton, but even that penalty, it's like we drop points very easily. Like it's not hard to get something against us, and it's becoming a nasty pattern. Kwame says MLS is keeping Cali out. Jordan says Calafiori, the less said the better. How Lewis Skelly making you look like Zinchenko? Tough. Burmy says MLS is outshining the signings, which is why we should use our academy a little bit more. I don't want to go back in time, but there are some players that you could look at that were probably let go in the last, couple seasons or so that probably could have been decent squad players at the very least for our attack, and were allowed to go. We didn't create pathways for them. It was just they're not good, or they want to play, so get rid. At Arsenal, you have to be really, really humble and quiet and not ask. If you ask, you do not receive, you know, and it's unfortunate. I'm not, if they're asking for a whole bunch of wages, I can kind of see that because it's like you don't really want to give these academy kids that much money. But the ones that just want a pathway and just want to play, I do think we've left some of them out to dry. And it took a long time for even Wanyeri and MLS to get some game time. Some people will say, well, that's why Arteta's the man, because he understands and he knows, but whatever. But he was so good. Again, midfield, I think, if I did man of the match, I think he would be right up there. I thought, again, in a game where Odegaard pretty much, did nothing. Rice was, the long passes, the dinks in behind, the crosses, the carrying, the desperation to make something happen. I hate watching players like Declan and Gabrielle play out of their skin and not get what they deserve, because it was a long time before we had players in our team that actually gave a shit. There was a long period of time where I felt like, what? These players don't give a shit. They don't care. They're just out here collecting a check. They don't care if we win or lose. Like, come on. I think those players really do care, and they're let down very often by the same people. And so, I don't think you can look past his performance. He's had multiple good performances in the last couple of weeks, and this one just really stood out because for somebody that doesn't necessarily have like the technical level of a Santi or Iniesta, I really do think that he pushed the envelope going forward and created a lot of chances for us and a lot of opportunities through just sheer will, and I like that about him. I like that he just does the basic stuff really well, you know, wanting it more than the other player, winning his duels, carrying when the space is there, crossing when, you have an opportunity. He almost scored a goal to like, yeah, basically a captain's performance. And yes, I am side-eyeing Odegaard because it's getting to the stage now where I'm like, we're gonna have to take that armband off your little arm now, honey. We're gonna have to. 8. I thought he was outstanding really today and didn't deserve to drop points. Honestly. Marino, you guys know I don't have one for Marino. 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 I actually thought you were good, but you have to be tracking your runner. Fell off in the second half. Your fitness levels are not high enough. We're getting a little bit further down in the season where I need those to go up significantly. But Yeah. 6, 5.5 maybe. Um, yeah. Yeah, Marino. You will never be a favorite, by the way. Marino's another one that he could score a goal in a Champions League final and people would still hate him. He'll never be a favorite and he'll never be well liked at this club. Um, so yeah. Um, Odegaard, might as well put Casper up here because I can't remember a single thing that you did really. And at this stage, I just don't even know, you know. I can give you an incomplete, like how your teacher would give you an incomplete for the assignment because you didn't really turn anything in. So 5, really just not non-existent. I can't give you I can't give you just because you didn't do anything. I can't give you a higher score because you didn't do anything. You know, it's just as bad as Partey throwing the ball in to Ollie Watkins for you not to be involved in anything that we're trying to do. You have to impose yourself on the team or on the group. I need you to at least be in positions to fuck it up. You didn't even get in positions to fuck it up. So just 5, like it was just below average, just wasn't good enough. I'll stop there. Odegaard 6. Ionle says Odegaard 4, and that's just for filling space. Uh, Casper, yeah, Casper, basically. Kwame says he's just unlucky that he didn't get the goal. Johnny says Odegaard 5.5, not okay from him. Odegaard 5.5. Marino, I'd rather not speak today. Kwame says Marino 7. Johnny D says Marino looks buff as fuck, not gonna lie. Theo says we need to talk about Martin. We already did, but you can say whatever you want to say. World Boss says Marino 6 needs more time. Alan says Marino was superb, but that mistake was costly. I think people that really watched the game saw that Marino was having a good game, but the moments matter. There's the performance and the moments, like we spoke about. And, you know, there's times where you can have a good performance and not have the best moments, but when they cost you a goal, it's detrimental. So yeah, Victor says Marino average again 5. Marino 5.5, he was okay. 9 Rice. Boy says Marino got a lot more handsome. Victor says his passing is so underrated. He gave a nice chip to Partey, and Partey gives a poor cutback instead of shooting. Yeah, I don't know why Partey didn't shoot there. Again, we like the instincts in the final third are so bad. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like when we should shoot, we don't. When we shouldn't shoot, we shoot. Like the cutback or not even cutback, the cross that MLS put in that nobody was there for is the one that I just want to see us do a lot more. I have no idea. I just don't understand why we do the floaty chip, you know? It's just low and hard across the 6. Somebody should be there, you know? But nobody was. So yeah. Um LG says Odegaard is a performance player, but not a moments player. And we need more moments. And Arteta said it, well, we need more moments. We need more moments. But stop expecting moments from these players. They don't have it. They don't have those moments where they just do something so individual that it really doesn't have anything to do with anyone else. I think Saka is the most likely to have a moment, but even he doesn't have enough where he just makes something happen out of nothing. Almost everything that we do is prescriptive. It's either prescriptive from a set play or is prescriptive from our patterns of play. But we rarely get one, we don't score easy goals. So the bobbling around in the box goals, the lucky goals where it just falls to you and you kick it in the back of the net. 9 times out of 10, we kick it over or we fluff our lines or whiff because we just have zero composure in the box. Or the moments just do not come. We don't have those. So there's already there's 4 or 5 ways that you can score. There are like 2 of those right there that we just do not have. And he keeps asking for them from the players that we have. And I'm like, you're not gonna fucking get it. They don't have it. You have some of these players you've been seeing for 4 or 5 years now. You should know that they don't have it. They don't have those moments, you know? It's crazy. So, yeah. Um, oh, this is where it gets interesting because it's not like you played badly. Trossard, 2 assists, one of his best games of the season. Misses a sitter at the end. People are telling me he was offside. I need to see the lines. I actually need it to go in the back of the net for us to see, because there are times where you think people are offside and they're not. But I want to actually see it go to VAR. Sorry. Um, that being said, he had a bad moment, but his overall performance was fantastic. And I hate that for us because there's just we should be talking about how good these performances were, but the damage has been done. We drew and dropped 2 points from 2 ahead, but I thought Trossard was really good. I'm telling you, ever since he got that Cruyff off on Porro, he's been a different player. He really has been, and, I just feel like we need to put more pressure on the players that we have to perform. Whether they get us there or not is irrelevant, but what I don't like is before a ball is even kicked, we're like, "Oh, well, it's Martinelli, Kai, and Trossard. We're just gonna lose against Villa." We should expect to score goals and create chances at home no matter who's up front. I don't care if you have Mary Poppins and, Bill Nye the Science Guy and me up front. If we're at home against Villa, a non-elite side, I fully expect us to create chances and score goals, even with these guys. We are not a bottom feeder side. So I don't know why people are just, "Oh, well, fuck it. That's our excuse. No Saka, no goals." So we know you guys can score goals. Now, can you just at least score them when it really matters? We know you guys can score goals now. I'm expecting the performances to go up from here. Trossard, do not go backwards. That was a good performance from somebody who's really struggled over the last, month or so. So I'm gonna give him a 7.5, I think. 2 assists, a really good rounded performance, missed a sitter at the end, so I can't give you, like, a higher score than that. Because if he would've scored that, then maybe and he was onside, and we were talking about 8s, 9s, but I think he was good. I do. Yeah. Um, Nelly. Oh, little Nelly. I actually thought he was good today as well for the standards that we've set for him for this season, which are not high, which I admit. Um, we're not quite at Sterling levels where as long as you don't kick it in the back of your own net, I'm pretty much okay with you. But I did think that he offered a lot more. He looked a lot more confident. He scores the goal, um, which is great. So yeah, I can't really remember any moments where I thought, oh my gosh, but I know people are saying that the he should have passed it in the counterattack right before we conceded the goal. I have to look back at it, but I think overall, again, performances versus moments, the performance was actually pretty good, but maybe he just wasn't as good in the moments. So he scored a goal though, the opener, which is really important. So probably gonna give him like a 7. That may be too high. 6.5, 7 maybe. I don't know, something around there. But I don't feel as low on Martinelli as I should, but yeah. Um Kai, um, like somebody said earlier, like 0 out of 10, 0 out of 10, 2 out of 10, now a 5 out of 10, we're making progress. Yeah, it probably was about a 5 out of 10 today. He scored a goal. Um, but I just feel my thing with Havertz will be if I just judge him based on what he does, then my scores are a lot more honest than when I'm always thinking about what should be there. Because if I'm judging him up against the player that I want in my mind, he'll get zeros every time. But I don't actually think that he was, like, horrendous today, but I don't think he is anything to write home about. Without the goal, it's not a great performance, but, what do you need a striker for? To score goals, so I'm gonna give him, like, a 6. I'm trying to figure out why I'm not seeing box crashers crash the box on that MLS chance. Where are my box crashers? Where are you at? Handball? It's unfortunate, what is he meant to do there? I don't know, but yeah, like a 6, something like that. It is what it is. Um, We brought on Sterling. Now this could genuinely be like a 0. But it just is what it is with him. Any serious team cancels the loan. We don't need somebody that's, you know, um, when you get somebody on loan, you kind of need them to just go. You will, nurture your actual players back to some level of like, you know, confidence level. But having to do this with somebody else's player just feels very like just cancel the shit and just go get someone else. I don't really understand, but maybe we can't, but we should. Um, we should be dying to cancel this loan. No offense. So 5, I guess. Below average, definitely for sure. Isaac says, I'd rather play them 2 youth players than this guy. Johnny says, Sterling, -1. If I'm Mr. Freeze, I love him because he made it into the negatives. Kwame says he shouldn't have denied Marino when he was in the way. I don't know. If a ball is coming at you that quickly, it's really hard to get out of the way. Burmy says, Sterling 3 got us a free kick. Sterling 5 did not have time, so did not have like enough time to do anything. Johnny says nearly all got high marks today. It was a good match. I mean, it's so this is why when we came in, that's why I talked a lot about the nuance of the conversation, because if you actually watched and you're honest and you're not a loser just yelling for the sake of it, you would have a very difficult time giving out 4s and 5s for the performances that they put out today. People were surprised at how well we performed because they had already thrown in the towel knowing that we would start Trossard, Martinelli, and Havertz. But my problem with this fan base is that we do not expect anything from players that we should expect things from. We should expect that bare minimum. You should be scoring goals at home against Villa, you know? So obviously, the way that we threw away those points is not really just about like it's not like the United game and the Newcastle game where there was a bunch of sitters missed. It's not that. It's different. And they actually did all contribute. Trossard, 2 assists, Martinelli and Havertz both got goals. So really, you could make a case for the attack not being an issue. I still feel like they need to be able to come up with the moments, or, Trossard has got to put that ball in the back of the net, but besides that, we gave up 2 really soft goals, so I don't it's just, yeah, we shouldn't have been giving up them goals, but yeah. LG says Salah never has a 10 out of 10 overall game. In the big moments which matter, he pops up. And Burmy says played better than expected given the past several games besides Spurs. Victor says we have to stop rummaging through Chelsea's bin. It's embarrassing. Yeah, we do. Blaze says Sterling have a 0, should cancel the loan. Have 0, we should cancel his loan. I would want to cancel his loan. I think a serious team would. I think we're way too emotional and soft, when we don't need to be. If you want a new goalkeeper, you're very okay with destroying the mental stability of Aaron Ramsdale, but the fragility of other players, it's like we have to be super kind to Kai. We have to be super kind to so and so. We can't ruffle feathers and cancel this loan and just be like it didn't work. We're ruthless when we want to be, but when it really matters, sometimes I think we flatter to deceive. We're a little too okay to let this go. Jordan says, why do you think Sterling is struggling? I think Sterling is struggling because he's coming to the end of his career and he hasn't adjusted yet. I think he's very much so in the Williams right now, where, he was a big part of a good side for a long time. And although Willian came straight to us from Chelsea, I actually think this started at City, where Pep said, you're no longer like needed. And when you're a player that has an ego, which Raheem Sterling should because of all the things that he's accomplished, I think it's difficult to hear you're no longer needed. And then you go to Chelsea, that doesn't quite work out. They're very brutal with you and very ruthless and have you training with under 21s and treat you like a piece of crap. Then you come to Arsenal. on the last day, loan situation, you're not quite fit, and it's not really clear that you're going to be able to get into the starting 11. I think, again, bringing in somebody that lacks confidence when you already have a bunch of a bunch of head cases. The only player in that front line that is not a head case is Bukayo Saka. He is the only player that believes in himself 99.99% of the time. That doesn't need an arm around him, that doesn't need somebody to kiss his ass, that doesn't need somebody to nurse him back to health. Everybody else got problems. Everybody else needs therapy, you know? And so I think it's just when you get players, because Willian was kind of like this as well. Willian still had like the chip on his shoulder a little bit more. Like he was a little bit more arrogant about it. Like he was disappointed that Chelsea were unwilling to give him that 3-year deal after all that he's done for them. And I can't believe they just are okay with me not going. And then he came to Arsenal and I just don't think he could come to the realization that you're on the slide, and so your role in a team might look different, or, you're maybe not as coveted as you used to be. And I just think that I don't want players that are in the in-between on the slide. Sterling is very much so realizing that that it's over at the top level for you, so. But we gave him a home, so there you go. Johnny says Ramsdale was a bit of the top. It was a problem with him. Behavior does matter. He needed to be more composed. Arteta was tipped off by that. I'm okay with that. But when I'm saying about ruthlessness, I'm saying not necessarily in comparison of the situations. The Sterling situation and the Ramsdale situation are not similar in the context, like they're not the same. But in terms of, you were willing to do anything to get Raya in the door, so much so that you were willing to have a head case of a number 2 willing to tank our season. You knew Ramsdale was a little bit of a head case, and you were willing to risk that to get Raya in the door. And he did. Nobody was really going into that summer window saying that we needed a new number 1. We accepted it because we knew down the line Ramsdale wouldn't be good enough. But we literally got a loan for Raya to come in. That's ruthless. To me, that's ruthless. That's very ruthless. So when it comes down to it, I know you guys can be cutthroat if you want to. You guys should be so desperate to get somebody else through the door and to not have somebody else be your problem that you should be able to cancel this loan. Come on now, cancel this damn loan. Victor says, I've been saying this, filling your attack with players who are on the downward trajectory results in attacks like this. City didn't go scavenging in for an ops attacker. They went for the best in Europe. C1 says Arteta is also unimaginative, could have substituted Tierney in and have him overlap Leo, no plan Bs. Johnny says, I think Sterling is done with football. He probably changed women 3 years ago because he looks different, like a different man than he was at Liverpool in the first 2 years at City. C1 says our performance today was much better than against Spurs. That is the infuriating, frustrating thing. Exactly. That's what makes it even more annoying. It's really hard for us to scam a win. I think we kind of maybe scam the original Aston Villa win at their spot. We definitely scammed that. We were awful, and they really should have probably put the sword to us a couple of times early on in that game. But we don't scam wins enough. It's never, we have to be like perfect. And today we weren't perfect and we didn't get away with it. So yeah, it sucks. It sucks down. It really does. But Raheem, you're not a dream. You're a nightmare. And you're probably a nice bloke, but my goodness, would I be telling Chelsea that he'll be coming back to you today? Yeah. Boy says, is this going to take us over the line? It's 2025, maybe before 2005, before information age really got kicked off. It was feasible strategy. We need to sign players. Yeah, we need to sign players. That's why when whoever that was came into the comment section talking about why would they sign anybody? Why should they sign anybody? They could be 10 points ahead of us in the next week. because we need to sign players regardless. Whether it's this season or this summer, we might as well get a move on. We might as well get a move on. We are going to need, like, in the best case scenario, in my mind, I'm saying 3 attackers and at least 1 midfielder. Start buying, because we need a lot. Because now that we haven't hit certain things already that we've already needed, now that list is getting bigger because we haven't, really looked at certain things for multiple windows. So, yeah, might as well start next season's prep. It's like, why wait? Boy says the quality of training is getting worse with the players available. Kwame says we weren't ruthless enough tonight. And yeah, it's really disappointing, but it's just another way that we lose. We either lose because we give up like that one chance and we can't score a goal, or we score the goals and now we're giving up the leads. And it's just we could find any creative way to drop points. Like, we really can. So yeah. Asante says, honestly, I'm so deflated. I did not celebrate either goal. I just had a feeling Villa would somehow get back in the game. That's enough to tell you how much we need players now. And yeah, I mean, there was always kind of like the feeling, because the last couple of games, it has been that one chance, one goal. So I can see why, most people would be thinking, yeah, probably going to get the goal. And I thought that they would score at least one goal. But what I didn't count on was for us to concede that second one. I think the second one is unforgivable, because conceding one should tighten you up. You concede one and your back goes straight and you're like, okay, we need to tighten up. That first goal, that was shit. To turn around and do the second one is unforgivable for me, because it's just like, you know? Um, so yeah. Um, hey says Havertz is your striker. He was your best player today. He wasn't. And Kedia's ex-lawyer says top gooners are now saying we should write off the season because of Saliba's injury. Um, yeah, to add insult to injury, Arteta's talking about the Saliba thing. They're very worried. And so, yeah, this season is going to come down to the perfect excuse for Arsenal to go, but it's the injuries. But again, we played against today one of the better sides in the league and should have won, even though Saliba's not there. There's too many reasons why we're not expected to perform. And I want to at least see the players that are out there perform to the best of their ability. And if we drop points, we drop points. But today should be a good indication of the type of performance that we should expect. Period. I don't expect what I saw against Everton or what I saw against Newcastle. I don't want to see that shit. I don't want to see that ever again. Today is the benchmark for good players being out. I still expect us to score goals. I still expect us to create chances. You guys gave up the goals. I get that. But the level of performance was much higher than I think people expected. And I'm like, why are your expectations so low? you know? Um, so yeah, but yeah, if Saliba, is out for a significant amount of time, or, whatever, it's just the season of hell for a lot of Arsenal fans we have such bad luck with injuries, and they were doing mental gymnastics to try to convince people that we had bad injuries the 2 seasons prior. We didn't. We had a very consistent 11 for the last 2 seasons. We were lucky the last 2 seasons. This season, we are unlucky. I will say that. Consistent injuries, we are unlucky. It would be hard to overlook it. Is an excuse for, like, everything? No, of course not, but it adds context. But that first season where everybody was like, "Oh, the Saliba injury means it's okay for us not to win the league." Come on now. Asante, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, anyways, get yourself a coffee. We move. And on that, I'm gonna get out of here. I love you guys so much. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your weekend. It's Saturday. Go out or hang out with family, hang out with your dogs. I don't know, because that's what I'm gonna do. But I love you guys, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye guys.